I haven't filmed a video in what I think is over a year. The lighting in this space is actively bad, and there are some books slightly in view which aren't part of this video and I'm not going to be talking about, which could be immensely irritating for anyone watching. Welcome back to the Whittle Tree. Okay, I'm going to be talking about birthday books. It was my birthday somewhat recently. That's not me not saying out of personal reasons, but because I'm filming it late and I'm uploading it probably later because I have to edit it, which I'll do at some point. So trying to put any form of time frame around this to make this video somehow more meaningful is a bad idea. But there are books, and that's all that really matters. So let's talk about them. This is Cormac McCarthy's The Passenger, which looks very pretty. I had to go get this one off the shelf before I started. These were kind of already set up, because this is actually the only one of these books I've already read. And as you can see, it's a chunky, quite literary book, so, you know, it took me a little bit to read, so you can tell that some time has passed since purchasing it. I don't know why I feel the need to point out that the concept of this video is really temporally corrupt, but I'm going to anyway. I'd never read any Cormac McCarthy, but I've known I'd always wanted to. I have so many friends who talk about how good, well, movie adaptations are, like No Country for Old Men, which I don't know, it just feels like a cultural touchstone at this point, so I knew I had to get to it at some point. In the sci-fi space, The Road is talked about a lot. So I've had that book and I've been ready to read it for so long, but then I heard that The Passenger was coming out. For anyone who doesn't know, Cormac McCarthy, who wrote All the Pretty Horses, Blood Meridian, No Country for Old Men, The Road, which are, I think, his biggest ones, hadn't come out with a book in like 16 years until he announced this as part of a duology. This is The Passenger, the first one, and the second one, Stella Maris, comes out in a month or so. And it's been delayed, so there we go. Time still doesn't make any sense. It's very different. Apparently the others are quite bloody, and I haven't read them, so still. This one, it's almost all dialogue. It's very literary. Some of the writing's incredible. I'm talking about these kind of like literary bullet points rather than a plot, because there isn't really one. It's a hard book to recommend to anyone, even though I really thoroughly enjoyed it because the writing's beautiful. If you like good prose but don't really care about plot at all, read this. The briefest of plots. There is a man whose sister died around 10 years ago, and he didn't just love her, he was in love with her in a bit of a, I don't want to say creepy, but yeah, there's some incestuous, guilty, shameful emotions around all of this, and she died 10 years ago after kind of struggling for a long time with mental illness, and he's trying to, basically finding it hard to live without her. Like, he is still in a state of not only grief, but like misery from losing her. And he's caught up in multiple, almost sub-conspiracies, where his father worked on the Manhattan Project, which was under, you know, developing the nuclear bomb, so there was massive secrecy, and someone broke in years ago and stole his father's notes on his physics research, which seems strange, not something burglars would do, and now he's a salvage diver. There are all these little things which all could be reasons that authorities seem to be coming after him, or at least keeping tabs on him and like closing on his assets. But you don't really know why. You never know what's going on. You never know what they think he knows, but we do know that he doesn't know what they think he knows. And so it's just this person kind of struggling with emotional turmoil and trying to survive in a world that he's kind of rejected, or has felt has rejected him. And it talks a lot about physics and philosophy and our place in the world and all that kind of stuff. And it was enrapturing. It's one of those things I told my wife, like, I don't know why I like this book, but I can't put it down, and I don't think I can recommend it to you. Actually, I think you'd hate it, but it's really good, which had so many contradictions. But anyway, I didn't need to turn this into a book review. Okay, the rest of the video will go quicker because I haven't read any of the rest. I went on a little trip to Newcastle up the coast, so that's what these are for, and I'll remove them so we can get full, glorious view of the books. This is IQ 84, Murakami. Again, haven't read it, know almost nothing about it, only that I've really wanted to get into Murakami. This is where I'm going to start. It was either this or Kafka on the Shore, but I don't know, it seems intriguing to me. So this is where I'm starting. Know literally nothing about it, can provide no valid commentary on it. You're welcome, viewer. Next, I'm actually going to present these together. These are both by the same author, Vernor Vinge. And so these are very sci-fi to be, like, this book, A Fire Upon the Deep by Vernor Vinge, Vinge? I don't know how to pronounce his name. Not only did this win a Hugo Award, but the author has won 5 Hugo Awards, which is insane to me. I didn't realize I had somebody who'd won that many Hugo Awards, but apparently there's people who've won even more. Oh no, my books have collapsed. This book, A Fire Upon the Deep, I only became aware of a few weeks ago because of a few book reviews I started watching. One of whom was Media Death Cult, who said this was his favorite book of all time on one of his lists, which shocked me that somebody's favorite sci-fi could be a book I'd never heard of when I quite like sci-fi. But here we are. And apparently it's just, very, very rarely do you hear the comment on a book, I really enjoyed it best the 6th time through. Like, apparently people just finish it and want to reread it all over again because it's this kind of like engineering masterpiece of a world where, as far as I'm aware, the dynamics of the universe change depending on your position in it. In the center of the universe, things are quite simple and operating on a very basic, almost like how we think of microscopic, like just atoms bumping into each other, nothing really interesting happening. And then as you move out, it allows for more complexity till you get like simple life and then complex sentient life. And then you go further out, you get beyond that to creatures that almost become gods. And there's a fire upon the deep because something's been awoken out in these realms that's starting to move inwards, which is beyond our comprehension. And so it's this complicated universe that is apparently also incredible, and I'd never heard of it. And the cover looks sick. It's just like classic sci-fi. And this is apparently the prequel to it, which I know even less about. But yeah, I got them as a pair. Most of these were gifts, but like, you know, this will come after this one. Apparently it's quite different. I don't know if it's recommended quite as highly, but I feel like finishing this, I'll immediately want to leap into something related, which is what this will serve to do. Next we have Ender's Game. Very pretty. I normally don't go for mass market paperback editions, I say after already showing A Fire Upon the Deep, but sci-fi, it's like, it's pulpy. It's what it's made to be, and so I feel like if there's any excuse, it is these types of books. Ender's Game, I know, is about a child who has to do some war stuff in space. I've heard Harry Potter in Space is a commentary I've heard. I also know it was a lukewarmly received movie starring certain Harrison Ford. That's most of it. I also know Orson Scott Card was kind of like the progenitor to the J.K. Rowling in the problematic author department, where I believe he had some extremely problematic and unpleasant views towards LGBTQ people, which doesn't sit well with me. Yeah, I have no point to make on this. But yeah, I mean, do I feel a bit bad now sitting here, the fact that I've given money to him or his estate? I think he might be dead, I don't know. Let's move on. This is Contact, which is the only science fiction book, I think only novel, written by Carl Sagan, the astronomer and incredible scientist. He did the original Cosmos series, was an iconic person in popular media for science in like the 70s, 80s, I want to say, and he also like took part on developing some of the materials that were sent out with the Voyager, like the Golden Disc and things like that. And basically he's one of the best people in the world and an expert to actually talk about what would happen if aliens made first contact. And I think that's basically what the book's about. Extremely fascinated to get into it. It's just, he's an iconic man who's written some incredible books, and I'm very curious to see his opinions on all this, because it's not just some random, novelist. He is a scientist who works in this field who would kind of be able to bring some realism to the idea, but I don't know how farcical it goes. I don't know how much, alien sci-fi pulp it goes into versus just a quite practical look at how humanity would react. I just know it's a novel, so very curious not only to actually just read it for the plot, but actually to see how he goes about it. I'm really excited to get into this one. And after I read it, I feel like I can finally watch the movie to see why Katya, the drag queen from as well as RuPaul's Drag Race, is so obsessed with. But I feel like I couldn't do that before this, but it's been torturing me for years because I've been watching those episodes over and over and over again. Next we have John Wyndham's Chrysalids. John Wyndham, known for Day of the Triffids and The Midwich Cuckoos, also wrote this book, The Chrysalids. I loved The Midwich Cuckoos. Perfect amount of spooky, unsettling, somewhat realistic, not over the top, but very kind of local horror in the building kind of stuff where it's just dread is the word. And Day of the Triffids is kind of, I hadn't read that one, the opposite, where it's just like, shit's hitting the fan, get ready for it. This is apparently his most different work. They say that a lot of like the hardcore sci-fi people, where I really don't know where to classify myself in that, love this book because it goes for the harder sci-fi rather than that ordinary world with a twist. It's apparently a bit deeper level than that in terms of like plot world complexity, but again, I know next to nothing about it and don't want to. Of all the books I got, this was probably top of my list. Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. I actually know something about the plot of this one. Apparently in this book, this group of spacefarers come across a sentient sun, which just has knowledge and a level of consciousness beyond our own. But apparently, not only is that plot on its own, it's like cool, apparently the writing is masterful. Apparently the prose is some of the best you'll find in sci-fi, because often in sci-fi you have people like, people might get upset with me for this, but like Asimov or Clarke, who bring in incredible ideas and then don't care about the characters and don't really care about the prose. It's all just about getting these cool ideas across. And so often if you don't care about the ideas, it's just like ramming your head against a brick wall. Like my wife hated iRobot, which I thought was really cool because the ideas are cool, but I can understand how it's hard to like relate to. Apparently this is just gorgeous, a gorgeous work of literature regardless of genre, which kind of sounds perfect to me because I do love my prose. So very curious, very tempted to get into, also scared to read it because the sooner I start it, the sooner it'll be finished, and I don't want it to be finished. Next we have I Am Legend. I love my spooks. I'm reading The Shining at the moment. It's great. And this seems, from the cover, if you haven't seen it, to contain the spookums. This guy looks like a spooky man who I wouldn't like to run into in a corridor, especially because of the teeths. I don't like teeths near my face, and he looks like he wants my face, and I don't want to give it to him, not at all. I know about this fast zombies / vampires, and there was a Will Smith meme. Well, Will Smith was in a movie adaptation where he had to kill his dog. Is that in the book? I don't know. If it is, I'm going to cry, and I know it's coming, I'm going to cry anyway. And I have a feeling I'll be spooked, and I'll enjoy the spookums because I'm a deranged fellow. Next we have, I hope this is in frame, the McCarthy Trio. I've got The Road somewhere else. I got it that ages ago. Couldn't fit the theme of this video, despite the fact it's temporarily corrupt. Couldn't even try. So we've got, these are all going for like pretty cheap, but we've got All the Pretty Horses, Blood Meridian, and No Country for Old Men. So I've got my McCarthy in, and after reading The Passenger, which is apparently his most like, I think that's the right word to use, ephemeral, like almost no plot and just great prose, and I not only got through it but like enjoyed it the whole way through. These I think I'm going to adore because they're going to add the only thing I was missing, which is plot. Like people rave about Blood Meridian especially. And also I want to read No Country for Old Men so I can watch the movie with Javier Bardem because apparently, again, incredible. And I'm interested because like apparently like people say that the antagonist in No Country for Old Men is the best cinematic portrayal of a psychopath. And as someone with like a psych degree who's like working or starting to work more professionally in psych, very curious to see how that translates across the page and what makes people say that. Next we have Sigmund Freud, The Essentials of Psychoanalysis. I don't really have any Freud. I've got Civilization and Its Discontents, but that's kind of his philosophy. It's not really his psychoanalysis stuff, and I felt like, you know, I'm not a psychoanalyst. I'm not obsessed with that kind of stuff, but some of the ideas are cool. Apparently his dream analysis stuff is actually wicked fun, and so it's you know, get it all out in one way, got a cool cover, got it for like wicked cheap, and it's kind of all the Freud will ever need, and I'll read it for funsies. I don't think I need to justify it more than that. Next, I'm gonna do a rude thing, and I'm gonna skip in to kind of keep it in the psych realm. The Body Keeps the Score. This is one of those books which I stay away from because I've done academic psych, I've really tried to gear away from popular psych because I'm afraid it's gonna like taint my judgment almost. Uh, because I'm not always aware of exactly how thoroughly researched and how intelligently, not intelligently, like how meticulously researched these things are, but they can often be extremely convincing, which is why they're so popular. And I don't want to just put false narratives in my head which could sway my thinking away from something that's more objective or held to be true in the field. So I've kind of stayed away from it, but this one just keeps coming up, and a lot of my friends who have been in therapy and even like friends who are psychologists have just said this is a great book, and so I am very curious to get into it. It's yeah, transformation of trauma. It's this idea, from what I can tell, of just how trauma can be internalized and reappear later in your life. But I don't want to pin any narratives to it before I've read it, especially because it's now talking more about the kind of scientific realm for something I have a degree in, so probably should respect that and try to have some authority when I actually say things. So I'm not going to go into it too much, but I'm very interested in this. I'm very interested to see how this kind of shapes our future views of trauma long term. So yeah, very curious. Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip one again. Because of trauma, right? I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jennette McCurdy. I watched iCarly with my sister growing up, and I loved it, and I love Sam's character. And so to find out that she had this horrific childhood where she just got churned through the absolute worst of what they say about Hollywood, especially towards children, broke my heart. It made me very, very sad. Part of, and I'll be honest about this, part of it is because you assume anyone who goes through that must come out broken, must come out a hurt person who might not be able to live well and happily. Because how can someone who's been through all that still be able to live that way? And Jennette McCurdy's done an incredible thing in that she's written it all down and maintained her humor. And in interviews, she's just a human being who seems to be living well and reaching for hope and happiness, and just, I don't know, showing a way forward for people who've been through some really, really terrible shit. I'm scared to read it because it's going to be really heavy and it's going to make me really sad. But I also think, much like the other book, it might actually give some insights as to how you get through terrible shit and how you help people who've been through terrible shit do so. Yeah, it's a few of these. This book and this book might be kind of of the last few years the most important work in dealing with trauma in the public eye, at least in the public consciousness. And so I almost feel a duty as someone who enjoyed her work when she was unintentionally being put through it. Really, I feel like a duty to her to reckon with what that actually means, and so I'll be doing that. And to finish on a slightly lighter note, a book about murders and death and stuff. This is The Man Who Died Twice by Richard Osman. I've recently read The Thursday Murder Club, and despite myself, absolutely fell in love with it. As you might be able to tell from either my literature choice or just how I talk, I don't know, I can be a bit of a pretentious wanker at times. And so when there's a book that's number one on the most popular read, I kind of instantly go, must be bad. If everyone likes it, it must be bad. Which is a stupid thing to think, and a pretentious, condescending thing to think, and I'm trying to be better about it. And Thursday Murder Club was one of those books that was everywhere, and everyone said, oh, it's so good, and the people I respect said, oh, it's so good, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's good. And I read it and loved it, because it's just a real frank discussion about death and growing old and how we cope, and how we deal with loneliness as the people we love go away, and just living on, just powering through and just doing what you need to do because, hey, we're here, we've got to do something, and there's only one way out of this, so fuck it, basically. And it was as inspiring as it was heartbreaking, if not more so. And so absolutely loved it. And there's already, the third one's just come out, and yeah, so this is the second one, which from all accounts seems to be as well received as the first. So yeah, very much looking forward to it. I'm not really a crime thriller person well, I'm a thriller person, but not a crime person, and so I thought this would not be for me at all. But really loved it. So I'm hoping the sequel's just as good. And that's it. This video may have been a bit of a shit show, but I actually enjoyed it. I had fun. I talked about books. I talked about the first book way too long. And if you're seeing this and thinking, no, we didn't, it's because I cut out about like 10 minutes of me talking about a book I don't really understand because I'm not very good at words. I'm not very good at the reading or the speaking of the words. So yeah. Bye! No, sorry, I couldn't. I ended it there. I took my phone out. I was gonna go upload. I couldn't end it that abruptly. Thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with my nonsense. Oh, I've got to get the other book. It's still behind here. Thank you for putting up with me talk about stuff I don't really know about, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, feel free to like and subscribe or share or something, or whatever it is people do. Or write in comments books you like out of these, or ones you think I should get, or did you get good books for your birthday? Yep, that's engagement. Okay, I can now leave without feeling completely impolite and rude, and let that compulsion die. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you.